I want to share with you some statistics, and they are not classified. You can have access to them in the websites. I asked some of the young students and the youth that I was teaching about these issues to go, and part of their assignment, at least to make good use of this computer that anyways they have at home. Okay, make some good use of it. Go and open those web pages of the Center for Disease Control and find for me certain things. The statistics about sexually transmitted diseases, that other side of freedom of sexual expression. Find for me that other side of the freedom of taking the intoxicant called champagne and beer and whiskey, or simply said and bluntly said, alcohol, intoxicant. And come and tell me what you learned from that. Because my point was, as I'm trying to elucidate it here, is this deen truly wants your freedom and mine. And when there is something that this deen says don't do, it is because it truly, underline the word, truly hinders your pursuit of freedom and of happiness. So I begin. 1 out of every 5 Americans have herpes. Herpes is an incurable sexually transmitted disease. 1 out of every 5, something like 45 million Americans have herpes. In other words, 1 out of every 5, statistically, no matter how good they may look outside, and no matter how much my behemoth gets attracted to that, when my behemoth talks, it wants to copulate with anybody, right? La haya'a fi din. I'm trying to make a point. 1 out of those 5 has an incurable sexually transmitted disease called herpes. 1 out of every 3 Americans will have a sexually transmitted disease by the time they are 24 years old. You know how many others? More than 83 million if we take the population as it stands now of the United States. Are you with me? We are all dangerously attracted to those images. And we buy programs and we buy cable and on and on and on. Listen to this. This is something for women in particular. 250,000 women die each year from cervical cancer. And cervical cancer is caused by sexually transmitted diseases. 250,000 each year of women die because of this. And the source is ABC News magazine program in the summer of 1999. Statistics show that 85% of all diseases reported to the Center for Disease Control are STD related. STD stands for sexually transmitted disease. I'm going to use these letters from now on. 12 million Americans, 3 million of whom are teenagers, are infected with a sexually transmitted disease each year. The new statistics that I had collected says it increased 15.3 million Americans. About 4 million now of whom are teenagers develop a sexually transmitted disease each year. Are you with me? As many as 56 million American adults and adolescents may have an incurable viral sexually transmitted disease other than HIV. And I'm going to skip the statistics of HIV for now. I'm going to skip them. I don't have enough time for that for now. Sexually transmitted diseases each year, for example, in the year 1995, you know what the associated healthcare cost was? It exceeded $8 billion. Worldwide, an estimated 333 million new cases of STDs, 4 of them in this case, gonorrhea and others, occurred in 1997. The statistics I have here of 1997. 333 million new cases. We already had hundreds of millions. 333 million new cases occurred in 1997 worldwide of 4 types of sexually transmitted diseases. I'm going to skip few. And I come to the next one. Intoxicants, in particular alcohol. And this report says, alcohol use is the #1 drug problem among young people. 8 young people a day die in alcohol-related crashes. Can you imagine if an external force kills 8 young Americans every day? It will be nuked out of the face of the earth. Wouldn't it? SubhanAllah, look at this statistic. Youth who drink alcohol are 7.5 times more likely to use any illicit drug. La ilaha illallah. Learn about the hikmah and the wisdom of Shara'. It says youth who drink alcohol are 7.5 times more likely to use any illicit drug. That includes cocaine, LSD, marijuana, and so on. And 50 times more likely to use cocaine, by the way, than young people who never drink alcohol. Your freedom and their freedom under the light of statistics. Subhanallah, when Allah Azza wa Jal says don't even approach it, start it and you begin a chain of irreparable harm. More than 40% of all 16 to 20-year-old deaths result from motor vehicle crashes. About half of these fatalities were in alcohol-related crashes. Estimates are that 2,222 persons aged between 16 and 20 died in alcohol-related crashes in 1994. In single vehicle fatal crashes occurring on weekend nights in 1994, 72.3% of the fatally injured drivers 25 years of age or older were intoxicated, as compared with 57.7% of drivers under the age of 25. When parents, this report says, when parents bargain with youth, and this is a matter of discipline and our philosophy of upbringing and of raising a child and of dealing with the nafs, if you can connect it to what we've been learning so far. When parents bargain with youth, in other words, allowing them to drink as long as they promise to not drink and drive, the youth are more likely to drive after drinking or be in a vehicle driven by someone who has been drinking. Johnson Institute, 1993 statistics. 1 in 3 college students now drinks primarily to get drunk. Primarily to get drunk. 1 out of every 3. Let me skip some of them. Each year, students spend $5.5 billion on alcohol, more than they spend on soft drinks, tea, milk, juice, coffee, or books combined. On a typical campus, per capita students spending for alcohol is $446 per student. Far exceeds the per capita budget of the college library. Poor grades are correlated with increased use of alcohol. Alcohol is implicated in more than 40% of all academic problems and 28% of all dropouts. 60% of college women diagnosed with a sexually transmitted disease were drunk at the time of infection. Nearly 1/3 of college students surveyed said they wished alcohol was not available on campus. And nearly 90% wished that other drugs would disappear from campuses. But when it is there, they can't help it. Approximately 240,000 to 360,000 of the nation's 12 million current undergraduates, this was 1991 statistics. Okay. Approximately, as I said, about 250,000 to 360,000 of the nation's 12 million current undergraduates will ultimately die from alcohol-related causes, more than the number that will get masters and PhDs combined of those students. About 3 in every 5 Americans will be involved in an alcohol-related crash at some time in their lives. Economic costs of alcohol-related crashes are estimated to be $45 billion yearly. An additional $70.5 billion are lost in quality of life due to these crashes. In 1997, there were 2 alcohol-related traffic deaths per hour, 45 per day and 315 per week. That is the equivalent of 2 jetliners crashing week after week. Finally, in the past decade, this was 1995 census, in the past decade, 4 times as many Americans died in drunk driving crashes as were killed in the Vietnam War. Drunk driving is the nation's most frequently committed violent crime. And then I say to those who drink, first, and those who believe in God amongst those who drink, and those who are against, mothers against drunk driving, mad. Mothers against drunk driving. May Allah guide you, mothers. Are you really mothers or mothers who follow their hawa? Why simply not mothers against drinking? Because every time you mother who's so compassionate about your child or the child of someone else's, every time you lift the glass to drink, you are contributing to the reasons of the deaths of those young men and women. Because you contribute to that business and you allow it to flourish under the disguise of freedom of expression. Freedom of expression that leads to these devastating realities that are not brought to the attention and focused on by the media so that they're communicated properly to the public. Is this freedom? Young men and women of Islam, and not so young men and women of Islam, is this the type of freedom you want for yourselves and your children? And please do not disconnect it from a style of life, because these things come because of a decision to live a certain style of life. These things becomes because of a philosophical choice we make of what constitutes freedom, of what constitutes life, of what constitutes responsibility, of what constitutes happiness, of what constitutes freedom, of what constitutes wrong, of what constitutes right, of what constitutes an Islamic solution. And therefore this teaches me and you that I am truly free when I take that entire comprehensive Islamic methodology, the result of an Islamic philosophy of life. If I don't do that, I'm going to be picking and choosing here and there. And when I pick and choose, which means that I have, in a sense, put my independent reasoning abilities before the reasons of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and the wisdom of Shara'. And if that which suits my aql I accept, and that which does not suit my reasoning I do not accept, then I am also contributing to the spreading of this philosophy, though I don't admit it, and I may even refuse it with my tongue. But my contribution and participation cry otherwise. My young brothers and sisters and my dear parents, freedom is to be free from anything but Allah Azza wa Jal. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم. إن قلت صوابا فمن الله وحده، وإن قلت غير ذلك فمن نفسي ومن جهلي ومن الشيطان. أعوذ بالله أن أذكر به وأنساه. Again, had I said anything correct or useful, it is from Allah Azza wa Jalla alone. Had I said anything incorrect or useless, it is my own ignorance, not this deen, the weakness of myself and the impact of shaitan upon me. I seek refuge in Allah, that I remind you of Him and yet I myself forget Him. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.